Okay, shoutout mga idol. Ngayon yung pag-uusapan natin at bigyan ng magandang reaction and comments ay regarding po dito sa mainit pa rin na usapan. Although tapos na ito, no? Yung tungkol sa fiasco, sugar importation na isa nga sa kinadawitan or sa isa nga sa mga rason kung bakit itong si AS or dating AS Vic Rodriguez ay nag-resign sa kanyang pwesto bilang Executive Secretary ng ating mahal na Pangulo. Akala natin ay tapos na pero totoo ay hindi pa tapos. Kasi pagkatapos nga na gumawa nitong report ng mga minority leaders po natin, so of course na pamumuno ni Senator Sen.Tolentino, alala natin na itong minority group naman or leader na si Coco Pimentel and si Sen.Hontiveros ay nagpalabas din ng kanilang or gumawa din ng sa kanilang sariling report, okay, or finding reports regarding po dito sa fiasco or sugar importation na ginawa or Senate hearing na nangyari. Okay? So ngayon parang dinidiin po dito ni Senator Sen.Hontiveros na may mali sa report na ginawa ni Senator Francis Tolentino. Kaya nga nagkainitan sa Senado.
I would like to quote from the committee report. Quote, "The SRA supply data and the preponderance of the evidence presented to the committee indicate that there may have been an actual sugar shortage." Mr. President, is the chair aware that as early as April 8, 2022, the National Economic Development Authority already flagged the limited supply and the high prices of refined sugar and declared that domestic production of refined sugar is not enough to meet the local demand? Ito po ay nasa liham ni then NEDA Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua kay dating Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez.
Yes, Mr. President, I affirm the contents of page 30 of the committee report, though I might not be aware of the letter addressed to Secretary Dominguez, which was not part of the committee report and was never discussed during the committee investigations, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, good share, and which I am bringing to the attention of this august chamber dahil ibig sabihin po, Abril pa lang, sa iisang kumpanya pa lang na Coca-Cola, meron na po silang hina-highlight na supply gap na 116,000 metric tons. At ito po ay pinansin na ng dating NEDA Secretary Chua sa kanilang sulat kay dating Finance Secretary Dominguez. Abril pa lamang po. 5 months before, Mr. President.
If the purpose of the good member of the minority is to put forward an official letter with a presumption of regularity after the submission of the committee report, we would note that in conjunction with what is contained in page 2 of the NEDA, likewise, which traces the prominent role of the sugar industry in the Philippine economic history. So all of this will have to be pieced together, and if the purpose of the gentle lady is to have this as part of the report, perhaps in the period of amendments, we can incorporate that if indeed the purpose is to establish that there was a sugar shortage, which the report affirmed that there indeed was a sugar shortage. It might be a surplusage, or it might corroborate existing documents made part of this report, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I thank the good chair sa kanilang sinabi na ino-note nila itong sulat pointing out 116,000 metric ton supply gap of just one company months before the events leading up to the sugar order number 4 noted earlier already by then serving government officials na inaasahan ko nga po pagdating sa period of amendments and even during the course of this period of interpellation na yung ganito pong mga nire-raise ko po nitong representation will indeed corroborate not only that there may have been a shortfall or that there was an anticipated shortfall, but that there was already an actually existing. Hindi lang po probable or possible, pero actually existing supply shortage already, Mr. President, good sponsor.
Yes, Mr. President, but then again, I reiterate that
Sponsor.
this was never discussed, never brought up during the committee, several committee hearings, hours of committee hearings when the, with all due respect, the minority leader had the chance to produce the said document. But then again, if the purpose is to establish the veracity of sugar shortage contained in the committee report, it might be the wish of this committee to note the said document coming from NEDA.
Thank you again, Mr. President, for the record. Good chair. There's nothing in the rules that prevent discussing new evidence germane to the issue in plenary. And in any case, Mr. President, I'm not presenting this to the blue ribbon. I'm presenting this to the plenary.
To interpolate, I will explain the philosophy that we brought behind the minority report. It's an attitudinal change that we want to happen, Mr. President. And
Even the minority leader himself was the one who said, if I may quote him, the gist is this: whatever the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee does here will be reflective of the integrity of the Senate. I quote that. That's part of the TSN. There's a video of that. And I recall, Mr. President, it was even the minority who insisted that a subpoena be issued to the former executive secretary. And we agreed with the minority to have the executive secretary be present. And within more than an hour, he was indeed present. So all of these collaborative efforts led to the production of this majority report, Mr. President. They were given the first crack to answer questions, to ask questions, and the last questions, the summation questions coming from the gentle lady from Panay and even the minority leader, Mr. President. All of these are parts of the record, Mr. President. So the majority report was part of a collaborative effort, and the whim probably expressed by the good Senate President has something to do with the intensive participation of the minority, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Ibang-iba naman po yung formally dito sa iniimbestigahan nating sugar fiasco. So are the badges of good faith of the people who stand accused in the majority report. Salamat.
I just need to react to the comments of the sponsor. He's taking it against the minority that we participated in the investigation.
No.
Hindi dapat gano'n. I mean, binabanggit po yung na nag-participate kami pa nagpa-subpoena, kami pa nagtatanong kami. Mabuti nga nagpa-participate ang minority. Ang aming point is, if after the hearing, there is nothing there, don't fault us if we see nothing there, because there's nothing there. That is the approach of the minority report, Mr. President. So don't tell us that nag-participate kayo, then therefore there must be something there. There is nothing there. So yan lang po yung ano. I hope that the sponsor also took the time to read the minority report, just as we took the time to read the majority report.
Yes,
So ganoon lang po yun, and I hope, because magkakaroon po ng chilling effect kasi yun kung papatulan namin yung nasabi po ng ating chairman sa future Senate Blue Ribbon investigations, mananahimik kami because we are afraid that we might disagree with the conclusion. Hindi po, we will continue. We should be allowed to participate. You should encourage our participation and not use it against us in case we disagree with the majority report. Because yun lang po yun, basta all we are trying to say, or part of what we're trying to say in the minority report is, as far as criminal liability is concerned, or the recommendation on criminal liability or on a further investigation, We participated in the hearings, we listened, we looked at all the evidence. Our conclusion is there's nothing there.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
President.
President, if I may react quickly before we move to another item. I think, Mr. President, I was misunderstood. We precisely are loading the efforts of the minority to come up with a very substantial report that can really shed light on this matter, Mr. President. So even if we're deluged with, no offense, to new sounding terms as badges of good faith, which we have never read in my entire law study. There are badges of fraud and badges of bad faith, but not badges of good faith. We really laud the minority for this. And since our rules, Mr. President, would attribute, Mr. President, to RIDICS as a supplement to the existing Senate rules, Mr. President. I just like to quote this and make this part of the records. RIDICS would say that a minority report, and I quote, a so-called minority report of a committee is not in fact a report, but is the views of certain members of the committee. So it is not, in effect, a minority report separate from the majority report. It is an attachment, appendage, an annex to the majority report. So the minority report might conflict with majority report, but then again, the majority report will prevail, Mr. President. That's the parliamentary rule in all parliaments and congresses around the world, Mr. President. Just for the record, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. President. It is a minority report, not a so-called minority report. Kahit pa i-annex nga siya sa committee report. The majority report will prevail. I guess in the end, Mr. President, the committee report will prevail as adopted or not by the plenary. And badges of good faith, Mr. President, good sponsor. With all due respect, the Supreme Court itself used the phrase badges of good faith in the September 2020 case of Madera versus Commission on Audit, in the October 2020 case of De Guzman versus Commission on Audit, and in the November 2020 case of SSS versus the Commission on Audit. Of course, Mr. President, these cases are quite new, so we should not fault the chair if he does not know of these new cases. Pero
I
wag
take
po
offense,
tayo-
Mr. President, to that attribution, Mr. President.
No, I apologize, Mr.
My
President.
lack of knowledge should not be implicated here.
No.
I have a law exam on Tuesday.
Yes,
so I'm
Mr.
still a law student right now. Perhaps your staff are not the law students here.
Well,
so,
Mr. President, I am
move
not
that-
a lawyer
That
myself.
phrase should be deleted from the records, Mr. President.
I have no
If there
objection
is
to deleting,
If there is
Mr.
an
President.
incumbent law student here, I am the one. I am the one. I challenge you.
1 minute.
I
Whoever
apologize
is
to the good
whispering
chair. No
you,
offense,
they are
Mr.
probably not
President.
law students.
Yes, I am not even a lawyer, Mr.
We're
President.
suspended.
So napilitang isuspend muna yung plenary sa Senado. So abangan natin mga idol yung update sa usapan na ito at least malalaman natin kung sino yung tama, sino yung may mali sa ganitong usapan. So maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you so much sa palagay nyo kung sino yung tama, sino ang mali. I-comments lang po dyan sa ating comment section. Alright, okay? And huwag kalimutang i-like po yung ating video, guys. Kung hindi pa kayo nakapag-subscribe, please subscribe na sa ating channel. Maraming salamat this week, Creation. And God bless everyone. God bless. Thank you.